Tonight, you do not need to solve your life. You do not need to chase answers, replay conversations, or prepare for battles that have not yet arrived. The day has taken what it could from you, and now it is finished. What remains is your mind, restless, crowded, searching, and this is where your training begins. As you lie here, breathing slowly, remember this simple truth. Not every thought deserves your attention, and not every feeling requires a response. Much of what troubles you exists only as noise, echoes of fear, habit, and expectation. These echoes grow louder when you resist them, but they weaken when you observe them without judgment. You were not given this moment to worry about tomorrow, nor to punish yourself for yesterday. You were given this moment to return to yourself, to place each thought where it belongs, to release what is not within your control and keep only what is yours. Your judgment, your intention, your choice to remain calm. Let the world be as it is tonight. Let people be who they are. Let events unfold without your interference. Nothing essential will be lost by resting. In fact, clarity is born here, in stillness, in silence, in the decision to stop fighting shadows. As this message continues, allow your mind to loosen its grip. You are safe to rest. You are allowed to be unfinished. Strength does not come from constant vigilance, but from knowing when to be still. Tonight you reset, not by force, but by wisdom. The night is not an escape from life, nor a pause where your struggles disappear. It is a quiet training ground offered to you every day, where the mind reveals its true habits. When the noise of the world fades, when demands loosen their grip, what remains is not peace by default, but exposure. Thoughts you avoided return, fears you outran catch up. This is not a failure of rest. It is an invitation to discipline. Most people treat night as a place to collapse, to distract themselves into sleep, or to wrestle endlessly with their thoughts. They believe rest means unconsciousness. But true rest begins before sleep arrives. It begins when you learn to sit with your own mind without being dragged by it. The darkness does not create anxiety. It simply removes the masks that daylight allows you to wear. Here, in stillness, you can observe how quickly the mind invents danger, regret, and urgency. It replays words spoken years ago as if they were said today. It imagines outcomes that may never exist, and yet none of this has weight unless you give it weight. The night teaches this lesson clearly. Thoughts appear, linger, and fade on their own when you stop chasing them. This is why the night is a place of training. You are not required to defeat your thoughts, only to stop obeying them. Each time you notice a worry and choose not to follow it, you strengthen a quiet form of control. Each time you allow uncertainty to exist without resistance, you loosen its hold. This practice is subtle, but it reshapes you. You are not meant to solve every problem before sleep. Many things that seem urgent now will shrink by morning. The mind, when tired, exaggerates its burdens. Wisdom lies in recognizing this pattern and refusing to argue with exhaustion. You do not reason with a storm, you wait for it to pass. As the body grows heavier, the mind can learn to become lighter. This is not surrender to weakness, but alignment with nature. Even the strongest require rest, and the wise know when effort no longer serves them. The night reminds you that control is not constant action, but measured restraint. In learning how to rest your thoughts, you prepare yourself to meet tomorrow with clarity rather than fear. Anxiety and overthinking are often treated as enemies that arrive without warning, as if they descend upon you from the outside. But they are not strangers. They are patterns the mind has practiced repeatedly, sometimes for years until they feel automatic. What you repeat becomes familiar, and what is familiar begins to feel unavoidable. This is how habits disguise themselves as personality. The mind learns anxiety the same way it learns anything else, through repetition and reward. Each time you worry, you believe you are protecting yourself. Each time you overthink, you convince yourself that more analysis will bring safety. The mind remembers this false promise. It learns that tension equals preparedness, that rest equals danger. Over time, this becomes reflex, not reason. But habits are not laws of nature. They exist only because they are practiced. If anxiety can be learned, it can also be unlearned. Not by force, not by hatred toward yourself, but by interruption. The moment you notice the pattern, you create distance from it. Awareness alone weakens what once felt absolute. Overthinking thrives on the illusion that every thought is important. Yet most thoughts are echoes, not commands. They repeat old fears using new words. They borrow urgency from emotion, not truth. When you stop treating each thought as a problem to solve, the habit begins to starve. The mind grows quieter when it is no longer constantly entertained. This unlearning does not happen in dramatic moments. It happens in small refusals. You feel the urge to replay a conversation, and you choose stillness instead. You imagine a future failure, and you return to the breath. These choices may seem insignificant, but they are acts of retraining. The mind notices what you reward with attention. Anxiety loses strength when it is no longer obeyed. It may still appear, but it no longer dominates. Like a muscle unused, it weakens gradually. Overthinking, once loud, becomes occasional background noise. You begin to recognize space between yourself and your thoughts. And in that space, freedom grows. There is no need to shame the mind for habits it learned while trying to survive. What matters is what you practice now. Each calm response teaches the mind a new lesson. Each moment of restraint rewrites an old script. This is patient work, quiet work, but it is real. The mind is not fixed. It is shaped daily by where you place your attention, especially in moments of fatigue and silence. When you stop feeding the habit, it slowly forgets its role. When you choose steadiness over reaction, the mind adjusts. What once felt permanent begins to loosen, breath by breath, thought by thought. The mind resists sleep not because it is strong, but because it is still trying to command what cannot be commanded. It reaches forward into tomorrow, backward into yesterday, tightening its grip as if vigilance alone could shape outcomes. This effort feels responsible, even noble, yet it is misplaced. Control has limits, and exhaustion is often the cost of ignoring them. Surrender before sleep is not defeat. It is discernment. It is the recognition that effort applied at the wrong hour becomes waste. You are not abandoning your duties by resting. You are placing them where they belong. The mind was not designed to carry the weight of the entire future through the night. It was designed to act when action is possible and to release when it is not. What troubles you most at night is rarely solvable in darkness. Decisions require clarity, and clarity does not arise from strain. By insisting on control when the body is tired, the mind distorts reality. Small concerns become heavy, distant possibilities feel immediate, and imagined outcomes take on the weight of certainty. This is not insight, it is fatigue speaking in the voice of urgency. To surrender is to say, not in words but in posture, that you accept the boundary of this moment. You allow unanswered questions to remain unanswered. You allow unfinished tasks to wait. This act requires trust, not in luck or fate, but in your own capacity to meet what comes when the time is right. Tomorrow will bring its own strength. Tonight is not required to supply it. Letting go before sleep is an exercise in humility. It reminds you that the world continues without your supervision. People make their choices. Events unfold. Outcomes form beyond your reach. Your peace does not depend on managing these things, but on recognizing what is yours to govern and what is not. This distinction is the foundation of calm. As you loosen your grip, notice how the body responds. The breath deepens, the jaw softens, the shoulders release their quiet tension. The mind, no longer tasked with impossible control, begins to settle. Thoughts still pass through, but they arrive with less force, like leaves drifting rather than stones thrown. This surrender is not passive. It is a deliberate act, chosen again and again, as the mind attempts to reclaim its burdens. Each time you release, you reinforce a quieter strength. You teach yourself that safety does not come from constant vigilance, but from alignment with reality. Sleep follows not when every problem is solved, but when the struggle against uncertainty ends. In yielding control for the night, you conserve what matters. You preserve judgment, energy, and clarity. The mind rests not because it has conquered the future, but because it has finally stopped wrestling with it. Quiet discipline is rarely noticed by others, and that is precisely its strength. strength. It does not announce itself, does not demand recognition, and does not rely on force. It works beneath the surface, shaping the inner order that determines how you meet the world. While chaos seeks expression through noise and reaction, discipline moves silently, choosing restraint where impulse expects release. Inner order is not the absence of feeling, but the arrangement of it. Emotions arise as they always have, uninvited and often inconvenient. The disciplined mind does not argue with their existence, nor does it surrender authority to them. It observes, acknowledges, and places each feeling where it belongs. Anger is not allowed to steer judgment. Fear is not allowed to dictate action. Desire is not allowed to outrun reason. This quiet discipline is built in moments that appear insignificant. When you pause before reacting, when you choose not to speak what will only disturb your own peace, when you allow discomfort to pass without demanding immediate relief. These are not dramatic acts, yet they accumulate. Over time, they establish a stable center that is not easily shaken by circumstance. Many believe strength must be loud, assertive, and visible, but the most enduring strength is internal. It is the ability to remain steady when provoked, to remain measured when tired, to remain calm when uncertainty presses in. This steadiness is not gifted. It is practiced. Each day presents countless opportunities to either surrender to disorder or reinforce inner structure. The mind naturally drifts toward excess. Too much anticipation, too much regret, too much attachment to outcomes. Discipline restores balance by reminding the mind of its proper role. You are not required to predict every future event, nor to relive every past mistake. You are required only to meet the present moment with clarity and intention. At night, this discipline becomes even more essential. Fatigue lowers resistance, and the mind seeks stimulation or conflict to feel engaged. Quiet discipline refuses both. It chooses simplicity. It limits unnecessary thought. It directs attention inward, not to indulge anxiety, but to recognize its temporary nature. Inner order is not rigid. It allows flexibility without collapse. When circumstances change, the disciplined mind adapts without panic. It does not cling desperately to plans or expectations. It understands that control lies not in outcomes, but in response. This understanding brings a sense of composure that cannot be taken by external events. To live with quiet discipline is to reduce inner friction. Fewer battles are fought unnecessarily. Less energy is wasted on resistance. The mind becomes a place of order rather than conflict. Thoughts move with purpose instead of crowding for attention. In this order, clarity emerges naturally. Not forced, not hurried, but steady and sufficient for whatever the moment requires. Rest is often misunderstood as a retreat, something granted only after usefulness is exhausted. Many treat it as a reward for effort, or worse, as an admission of weakness. But rest, when chosen with awareness, is an act of wisdom. It is a decision made by the mind to preserve what is essential rather than waste it through constant strain. The body understands this naturally. When pushed beyond its limits, it falters. The mind is no different, yet it is often denied the same respect. You ask it to remain alert without pause, to remain sharp without renewal, to carry weight without release. Over time, this neglect appears as irritability, confusion, and a persistent sense of unease. These are not failures of character, but signals of imbalance. True rest is not collapse. It is intentional stillness. It is the moment you recognize that continued effort no longer improves the outcome. Wisdom lies in knowing when persistence becomes stubbornness. A tired mind does not think clearly. It repeats itself. It circles the same concerns, mistaking motion for progress. Rest interrupts this cycle. To rest wisely is to trust the rhythm of effort and release. Just as breath requires both inhale and exhale, life requires engagement and withdrawal. Constant engagement dulls perception. Constant vigilance erodes judgment. When you allow the mind to rest, you sharpen it for the moments when clarity is required. There is discipline in choosing rest when the world encourages constant activity. It requires restraint to stop seeking stimulation, to stop consuming information, to stop rehearsing imagined futures. This restraint is not laziness. It is an assertion of priority. You recognize that peace of mind is not a luxury, but a foundation. At night, rest becomes a form of preparation. You are not abandoning responsibility. You are restoring capacity. The mind that rests well is less reactive, less defensive, less consumed by trivial disturbances. It responds rather than reacts. It listens rather than rushes. These qualities are born not from effort, but from renewal. Rest also teaches humility. It reminds you that you are not designed to operate without pause. Accepting this does not diminish you. It aligns you with reality. Even the strongest structures require intervals of relief to remain intact. The mind is no exception. When you allow yourself to rest without guilt, you reclaim authority over your attention. You stop measuring worth by exhaustion. You begin to understand that endurance is not proven by how long you strain, but by how well you recover. In choosing rest, you choose longevity over urgency, clarity over noise, steadiness over constant motion. The mind settles not because it has escaped responsibility, but because it has been treated with intelligence and care.